Welcome to this week's MTD Podcast. In this podcast, we will be discussing the complete automated solution. What does that mean? What does it entail? I'm Giovanni Albanese, hosting today's show, a passionate engineer and a proud member of the MTD team. We have the pleasure to be joined today by Martyn and Ashley Page from Hydrafeed. Martyn is a true ambassador for automation and the managing director of Hydrafeed UK. He's had nearly 37 years experience in engineering just at Hydrafeed. Ashley is the sales director for Hydrafeed, a true advocate for automation, and has been responsible for pushing the latest robo-job technology into the UK market, and is certainly doing a fantastic job. Welcome, gents.
Thanks, Gio.
Thanks, Gio. Yeah. Quite an introduction.
Like that.
Let's hope we live up to it.
It's been a pleasure to have you on, guys. Today we also have the pleasure to be joined by the one, the only, our very own Swarf guru, Mr. Joe Reynolds, a dedicated engineer with over 25 years experience. So welcome, Joe.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
So welcome, guys. And I just want to start really by saying, obviously we're in this current climate with COVID-19. We're all working and doing this podcast remotely. Me and Joe from our homes. Martyn and Ashley, I believe you're at your manufacturing facility.
Yes, correct. Yes.
How have you been finding it, guys?
Much the same as everybody else has, Gio. Really, I mean, it's a difficult thing to juggle because clearly we have customers that are picking up NHS work. We have existing customers who, as a second-tier supplier to some of the more needy industries, are still needing our parts. And at the beginning of last week, we thought, well, maybe we'll need to wind down a bit, but we haven't. We've quite the contrary, really. We brought people back, and we propose to do the same again next week. We're reviewing it as we go along. We are surrounded by a wonderful team of people here that, as long as we're not breaking any laws as far as the government legislation goes, are happy to do as we ask them, and they fully understand. But at the moment, we're producing parts on our subcontract side of the business. We are able to build, deliver, and install, albeit that it's difficult sometimes at the other end with customers not wanting us to go in and do service work that breaks down. But we're here, we're doing our best, and we will bring our staff back as we see the workload increase, and we will increase our staff load accordingly.
Yeah, that's fantastic news. Absolutely brilliant news, really. Very, very positive. Joe, you've been hearing a lot of stories similar, haven't you?
Yeah, it's remarkable how many people are busy. Obviously, it's quite easily to get down in the dumps about what's going on. Obviously, domestically in our home lives, it's not fantastic at all. But, we will manufacture a way out of this trouble, regardless of how long it goes on for. It's what we're good at. And I've got a number of friends in this industry, and they're still remarkably busy. Even people who aren't doing NHS work, okay, how long will that go on for? Nobody knows. But as it stands, it's nowhere near as bad as people may lead you to believe. I don't think.
Yeah, I think it's certainly overwhelming. Really, it's absolutely brilliant. I believe the way in which the manufacturing industry is really pulling together, and it's quite heartwarming, really, just to see it, how everyone's manufacturing these parts, from small end users to big, large manufacturing organisations. And one of the examples I seen was at iSpec. Ashley, we were there last year reviewing the RoboJob technology that he'd just invested in at the time, and Paul done a daily news with Darren. And at the time, he wasn't producing NHS parts, but days later, he's actually running NHS parts 24/7. It's a perfect example, really, of the kind of solutions that you're currently bringing into the marketplace, Ashley.
Yeah, definitely. I think for Darren in particular, the automation has enabled him to react quickly to fluctuations in demand, as we refer to it a lot. So because he has got the equipment there ready to go, ready and waiting, he doesn't have to plan as much as he originally would, maybe with or without the automation. So yeah, it's really enabled him to react quickly. And throw onto the machine what he has.
I think it's a real eye-opener, really, though, as well, for people that didn't invest in automation prior to this occurring. It really goes to show the value of automation in situations like this. And I think during this time, it's a perfect opportunity for people to learn, to re-educate themselves, to look at the latest technology that is available, and for how they can introduce it into their facilities when we come out of the other end, which hopefully, let's not forget, we will come out of the other end. We've just got to remain positive and get through this. This is not going to be forever.
Yeah, and I think perhaps possibly the guys at High Spec might not have been able to fulfil the requirements of the NHS work if they didn't have that automation. I think you're right, Gio.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that it will become a necessity even more so when we get out of this situation. I just thought it's an absolutely fantastic story. When it's so critical to make parts quickly at a faster rate, especially for critical parts like the ventilator pipes are now, automation is absolutely key.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that we need to consider, Gio, is the fact that although High Spec are doing an absolutely remarkable job, our other automation customers are possibly doing equally as important work. So High Spec are possibly a tip of the iceberg. These people that have invested in automation are clearly able to do exactly as Ashley said, and I would quite expect those people to be able to react as quick as Darren has at High Spec. So it's encouraging to know that what we're doing here at Hydrafeed in terms of automation it is helping. I mean, we don't want to appear to be profiteering out of this in any shape or form, but it's great to see that what the UK had embraced prior to this COVID-19 is now playing its part in helping us through. And as you quite rightly say, we will come through it. And the quicker we can get these parts, the quicker we're going to come through the other end. And it really does make all of us proud to be part of doing our little bit for the benefit of all. It's really quite encouraging.
No, absolutely. I mean, Joe, you've been looking at a lot of automated solutions recently. Have you got any other thoughts on some of the automation solutions that Hydrafeed offer?
Well, it's, if we look at, I just want to go back a stage, if I may, which if you go on LinkedIn, there is dozens, if not hundreds of companies that are doing things, making parts for this sector, the current COVID-19 issue, the ventilators. And one thing I thought that pretty much all of them, they're either printing something, which is great, 3D printing, or their machines are highly automated. It may be a sliding head lathe, or it may be a palletized machine. It's not always Hydrafeed, unfortunately for you gents, but the vast majority of people doing these work are on multi-pallet machines where there's no human intervention. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I do genuinely think it's a necessity.
No, I couldn't agree with you more, Joe. And I think that going back to what I said before, people really should be looking at, the only thing that is certain is change. Change is the only certainty that we all have. And I believe that this really kind of addresses technology in a big way. People maybe didn't have the luxury to be able to sit back and look at some of the latest technology that is available until now. So this is a great opportunity really for companies to look at their processes, look at how they were manufacturing components and look at the way in which they can improve their current processes when we get out of the other end. The people that may not be familiar with all of the products that Hydrafeed offer, can you just give us a brief overview, Martyn, of the portfolio that you offer? And can you just give us a little bit of a brief overview about how you started?
Let me just go back to Joe's point, if I may. I appreciate that the automation isn't always ours. We're clearly not able to supply every level of automation, and we understand that, and we have no desire to. We know our limitations, and we know where we want to be. We have a very clear vision here at Hydrafeed, but the common denomination is that those companies here in the UK that Joe and Gio and the rest of the MTDCNC team have recognised are the ones that are flying the flag for the UK and are doing well and are more than likely to come out the other end of it. And that's an interesting link between your own comment and Joe's comment there, because as you quite rightly said, Gio, a number of years ago, our customers didn't have this option to look for different levels of automation. And we at Hydrafeed have been fortunate enough to be dealing with the same OEM machine tool companies for the best part of 25 or so years. And we've seen those customers' machine tools grow, and with it, the speed and the intricacies, and the machine tools now, rather than just cutting a part, will clean a part, will load a part, will tell to adjust its own offsets. They've grown to be something far more than just a metal cutting piece of equipment. And companies like ourselves, like Hydrafeed, it's been very important that we've grown with them. Had we not, I don't think we'd still be supplying those same companies. Where we were supplying single spindle twin axis machines 20 years ago, we now have to offer an automation process that will complement twin turret, twin spindle machines, hybridized type machinery. And the company has had to evolve and metamorphosize to enable us to do that. Therefore, our range of equipment that we now offer, where we were originally offering an electro-pneumatic type short magazine bar feed, we're now doing the robots, which, as you quite rightly say, Ashley has been the turn to ambassador here in the UK to help most of the companies that need any assistance. We've seen the need for the long magazine bar feeds that we now offer. They're wonderfully innovative. They're not our own. We import them from Italy, but they do complement and reduce downtime on machine tools, which is why Hydrafeed were happy to hang our hat on it. And we visited the company to see the type of quality that they were manufactured to. Simple things like our small external conveyors. It's a low-level standalone piece of equipment, but it allows machine tools to be able to be run an awful lot longer unmanned, and in so doing increase the efficiencies of that company and that machine tool. Years and years ago, those weren't the considerations, but a man's time has now become the singularly most expensive commodity associated with the manufacture of parts. And if you can reduce that, the company becomes more efficient, grows, and the rest hopefully will become history.
Well, Martyn, that was for some absolutely fantastic points that you've made there. And I think that talking about the evolution of Hydrafeed and going back to the bar feeder days when it was just bar feeders, it's a great example of how not just your company has evolved, but automation has evolved within the engineering industry and the companies that you visit. And what I'm trying to say by that is when I used to visit companies on a daily basis, most companies that had a lathe would have a bar feeder, which is automation. And if they had a sliding head machine, they would all have a bar feeder. And they would just pick a machine and they'd pick the automation solution with it when it was a lathe, and if they needed to do higher volume work for certain examples. However, with everything changes, new technologies coming out, such as the robo job, and I'll bring the trip to Belgium in. New technologies are now available to automate 3-axis machines, 5-axis machines, and not just for higher volume work, but for lower volume work too. This is really a big game changer within the manufacturing sector. But I still believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's still big barriers to entry that need to be broken down. Some people, for whatever reason, just don't get it yet. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think in the past we've seen forms of established automation. So as you say, you don't really think of a bar feed as automation because, as you say, it's been around for such a long time that it's almost a taken. And when you think of a robot or mean, a pallet loader, you can also think in that terms of a bar feed in that case. But the robotics is certainly something which has a different emphasis, maybe, that we have to break down as a barrier to entry and show that robotics isn't maybe what it used to be. As you say earlier before, Gio, one of the things which is a definite is things will change, things will evolve, things will get better. And that's where we are with the robotics now. It's easy to use, it's quick, it's flexible. It's aimed, a lot of the products that we do in particular are aimed at your high mix, low volume batches. So for automation to be successful in that environment, it has to be easy to use, flexible. It has to be at the right price. It needs to be of a certain quality. So to go back to your original question of breaking down those concepts or where people are maybe afraid of robotics, it certainly does take a lot longer sometimes for us to actually get people over the line. But if we can show them, if we can illustrate to them the simplicity of it, I think that's the key. So people want to have simple and easy, and that's what we hope we're able to provide.
Do you think it's a mindset thing, Ashley? Do you think that people take it as that's how it is with a sliding head? It's got to come with a bar feeder. That is just how it is now. It's a complete solution. It's not separate. So the machine tool and the automation is not separate. Do you think that needs to be the mindset for all milling machines as well? When they buy a milling machine, there needs to be a form of automation that goes with that machine, whether you're doing high volume, low volume, regardless. People need to look at purchasing strategies differently now, and the consideration for automation has got to be as important as the machine tool itself.
Yeah, definitely. Whether or not, I think we see in the UK, whether or not you're making your own product or you're a subcontractor, they're the two splits that we see in the UK. And whether or not, as Martyn referred to earlier, I might go and see a customer and they might have different variations in their products, and it's a similar product, same family of parts, nice batch sizes, or they might have their 1s and 2s and 3s. And I'm able to advise them in the correct way. And if it isn't for us, and if it isn't in our ball game, and there is a better option out there, I will always be honest and say this is probably your better route. But we'll always find that, for example, somebody might want a tombstone type machine where you can't reach certain faces possibly, or you can't get that sixth face where you need to turn the components over. That's where the robots are enable a bit more flexibility going forward. And it's always about what the customer requires. People do see sliding head lathes and a bar feed as a package. You're quite right. You wouldn't really see them apart. And for us to break down the ethos that you buy just a milling machine and have a man standing at it, that is certainly something that we need to say, well, the robot keeps the machine running, the man will just set it. So the repeatable tasks are completed by the robot, and the setting is just done by a skilled man.
That's a brilliant analogy to use. Now, Joe, you made a statement on one of the Swarf and Chip shows that I had the pleasure of joining you on, and you said that that there's a massive misconception about low volume work. But you said that every time I go and visit a company where they're doing low volume work and they're automating it, they're the ones that are making the most profit.
Well, I think my words were, if you're automating low volumes, it's those with the Ferraris and the Bentleys sat outside. And it is true. It is true. And it's almost common sense. I'm not doing engineers a misjustice here. They're very clever people. I wouldn't be any good on a machine anymore. But, sometimes you do look at it and you ask them how busy they are, and they say, we're extraordinarily busy. I've got Jeff working a Saturday as well now. Oh, okay. So Jeff's doing a 50-hour week. Yeah. But that's how busy we are. Well, do you realise there's 168 hours in a week, and Jeff's working 60? What are you doing with the other 100? And when you mention that to people, sometimes they don't get it. They just don't get it. And And if they do get it, the comeback is, yeah, but we don't do thousands. We do 50, 60, 100 off. Better still. The money, I genuinely feel, unless they're very complicated parts, the money is in automated, like Ashley said, high mix, high value components.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Joe. I think the lower the volume, the more expensive the parts will be. Now, in regards to, I think it all. Well, let me go back. I think it all boils down to education, surely. Now, people need to. In my opinion, and the experience I've had in the past when I visited clients, if they didn't have confidence in a product, whether that be automation or whatever it is, they wouldn't invest in it because they didn't believe in it. So when we talk about education, it's about educating the potential customer into whatever we're looking to sell them to improve their current processes. What advice would you have in regard to someone that may be worried about introducing automation just because he is scared of how complex it may be, or he might be scared of the programming? What do you come across this, Martyn or Ashley?
Yes, we do. And it's interesting what Joe said a moment ago. The barriers that are in place are exactly as Joe described. That those companies that have got 60 hours and they're paying somebody double time on a Saturday to come in. What are they doing with the hundreds of other hours during that week? When us, for instance, I'm not professing that we do it all the while every week, but certainly what we do is with our robots downstairs is we pay somebody a bonus to come in on a Friday night or a Saturday morning to load the thing up, and then on occasion we can run that robot all weekend for around about £30 to £50, depending upon which man comes in and how far he comes from. If it's just a question of taking parts off and loading all the work on, you're getting another 30 hours out of it for about £50. It's those kind of barriers that need to be broken down. And once they are, and people become aware of that wonderful gain that they can have, then we quite often see people with that eureka moment. We've now found the innovative companies and the quick uptakers that wanted to take this, and Ashley now has good referral companies that he can take people to, such as Darren at High Spec. He's really embraced it, as have many, many other of our companies that we've supplied. So it is a bit of a slow slog to get there, but once Ashley has sat down with them and said, look, okay, if you run 3 hours a night for 5 nights a week, you do that over a period of a year or so, you're going to get around about 600 extra hours production unmanned. And suddenly you'll see the people that make the commercial decisions in the company have that eureka moment. Then equally so, it will open itself up to the production engineers on the shop floor. Ashley can then go in and show these people how simple these robots that we supply are to program. None of the operators need any previous robotic experience. And the two sides of the business are suddenly running in very, very, very happy parallel. The commercial man's happy because he's getting unmanned running time. The production engineer releases his staff to do a little bit more work. And as you've seen, Joe, those companies that have invested in it have flourished from that investment.
Joe?
Yeah. It's, to be honest, you're pushing on an open door with me. If I had a machine shop, I'd be the one that sat at home in my beer garden with my robots doing my work for me. Maybe that's because maybe I'm lazy. I'm not sure. But no. Joking aside,
we won't comment on that.
but no, joking aside, to engineers listening to this, there's 8,760 hours in a year, and I can guarantee you're not running all of those, because one of those is Christmas Day, one of those is Easter Sunday. So you haven't got human beings in those hours. So please do look at automation. It's I don't like saying no brainer, because everyone's got their own commercial restraints and padlocks within the business, but there should be a way to embrace automation. If you can't, sometimes there's an argument, you're buying that extra machine tool and you're only working one, how many times do you go and see a new VMC when they're only working a one shift pattern. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
definitely.
We have a customer in Scotland, Omnitool. He did come in over Christmas, loaded his machine up, and Ashley has been up there with. Well, you explain. You went up there and visited them and took prospective customers of ours to look to buy another robot, and it benefited Omnitool on site, didn't it?
Yeah. So when took some customers that were interested to see how they used it, and mostly I think it's people's questions are that how to use it, because if I've got a job that's stainless steel or Inconel, and I have to change a tip every 4 parts, how am I going to execute it, and how am I possibly going to get those running hours in the day? So that it's a lot of questions like that you get thrown at you. So that was in particular why they came to see. But what they saw at Omnitool was, again, with the more capable machines where you have things like sister tooling, you have probing in cycle where you can show where your updates and offsets can be configured. So it depends upon, obviously, from machine to machine on what you're making and what it's from. But certainly, as Martyn mentions, that the guys up in Scotland had lots of hidden benefits, such as Martyn says, just 4 or 5 hours here and there by the end of the month, by the end of the quarter, soon added up to 7 or 8 days additional capacity that opened their capacity. And they actually found that they're a very successful subcontractor, and it relieved them in many areas where they were at the limit of their capacity.
And because of that, they were able to take on additional work, weren't they? And the customers that you took up there, in actual fact, offered them for the ability to price some work, did they not?
Yeah. Yes.
So there's benefits to be had all round by embracing this automation that's currently available. Not only robots, as you inferred earlier. The bar feeds. We're becoming project driven here at Hydrafeed to some extent. We're now exporting to Australia a shaft loading project where we're loading on head 1 and we're unloading on head 2, and those parts are dropped into a bin and the bin is trolleyed away and another one's put in. It sounds a little bit agricultural, and it possibly the components are, but nevertheless, the common thread is that this person, through our agent in Australia, can now run unmanned, and it's a wonderful thing that we're becoming involved in when we get projects on. We've got people around our company now that are working on that.
No, I think it's great to hear some of them special applications that you're working on, Martyn and Ashley, and I think some of the ink canals and the hard materials, the components that you wouldn't necessarily associate with automation due to tool wear, etc. And how you overcome obstacles like that. It's great to hear. And I know that returns of investment would be dependent on application, so it's really difficult to be able to give me an answer on this one. I understand that. But what would you expect a typical return of investment would be for people that have never invested in automation that do so?
So examples we've had in the past, I suppose, are we put 3 robots in at a company in the Leicester area that made a lot of parts for the yellow goods industry. So there was a lot of fabrication in the workshop. There was a lot of machine blocks, if you like, which were a lot of holes in them, basically quite a bit of metal removal. But their return on investment was about a year. So they were fantastic at using it and just hit the ground running, and were able to see the benefits instantly. And as you say, it depends, I suppose, from industry to industry. So I'm working with another company at the moment, sort of a castings company I spoke to this morning. They have repeat parts that they want me to tell them the capacity of the systems and what can we get on a capacity of this component, how many parts do I get, how long can it run for, these are my cycle times. So I'm able to offer information like that for them to forward plan. So what we're trying to achieve is a weekend running, certain amount of time running. And if you do have your own products like that, it gives you the foresight and it enables you to plan your production a lot better at a predictable rate. So you're able to know what you're going to get and when you're going to get it, bar any breakdowns, of course. So
that makes sense.
Sorry,
Ashley.
Cool, yeah, there's another other customer that I talk to, aerospace, and they're exactly the same. They have a family of about 20 parts, and we've looked at all 20 parts and calculated where we need to be.
Yeah, I think it does make perfect sense what you're saying there. Now, taking that into consideration, when you've introduced automation into a business for the very first time, I would assume the proof in the pudding would be if they repeat order. Do you see a trend?
Yeah, it's great. It's fantastic for us. So we've got multiple companies with multiple robots in the UK and Ireland. So it's as you say. I mean, repeat product is where you want to go. It shows your products. It's a good product, does what it says on the tin, type of thing. So we've certainly got a lot of repeat customers.
Yeah, so I suppose once they invest in their first robot, they never look back, is what I'm trying to say. You know, I mean, again, going back to Darren at iSpec, I remember when we did that case study there, Ashley, we went up there together. He invested in the first robot, and then 6 months later, he'd invested in his second. I mean, is that uncommon or quite common?
No, that is quite common, believe it or not. So it sometimes you might think it's a lot of money to spend all at once, but it really does give, as Joe pointed out earlier, sometimes some people don't get that there's so many other hours left in the day. And as soon as you start to realise that is a realisation. So as Darren did realise that instantly and think, hang on a minute, there's something to be had here, turning and milling, then I'm going to see where I am. So the customer that had 3 from us as well in the Leicester area, he must have installed them all within a year and 2-3 months. No. So yeah, it's all very quick. It is quick.
Fantastic. Well, we're coming to the end of this podcast. Joe, do you have any last thoughts or questions for Martyn and Ashley?
No, not really. Not really. It's for me, just to wrap up. I think obviously we know the market's grown. It's anticipated it would double by 2025, isn't it? So I don't see why the Robo Job, Hydrafeed. I don't see why you guys will be any different. You support your customers well. A lot of people, like you say, return, whether it's for a bar feed or one of these robot loaders. So keep up the good work.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks.
Martyn, Ashley, any last words?
It's good. The company's in a good shape. We've worked hard over the past few years to create a team around us that are keen, eager, well-educated. Most of them are in their 30s, as Ashley is. The future looks good for us. We will continue to invest in this industry, and hopefully when we get through this current predicament that we're all in, we will see the UK and the manufacturing sector grow from strength to strength and stand us in better stead on the world stage.
Yeah, and I think from my point of view, there's lots of other benefits from automating that we haven't actually spoken about. Things like multiple control of machines through a single operator, and it enables the operators actually, and it adds to the quality of their day. Other massive benefits are things like stock. Enables you to reduce your stock because you're able to react quicker to lead times and things like that, such as Darren did with iSpec with the NHS work. But one of the major things which I don't think we've touched on too much on is globalisation. And globalisation is really about our competitors are now. It's not John down the road. It's now someone in Europe. It's someone now somewhere else in the world where the globalization has taken that on, where you're able to buy anything anywhere and get it to you fairly quickly. So if we don't remain competitive in this market, then we're going to fall behind. And as a UK company, and for us to want to keep manufacturing and keep our industry going, we need to remain competitive. And one of the only ways to achieve that is to automate.
That's really good points, and I think that we need to do another podcast, and it needs to be continued for sure, because we've got so much to say and not enough time to say it really. I think globalization and staying competitive globally is absolutely key to stay alive if you want to remain not only competitive but to stay alive, to keep your business going and keep it profitable. I'd like to say to everyone, during this challenging time for us all, to stay safe. I can't wait personally to get back on the road with you guys and start doing some case studies again at some of the companies that you've mentioned in this podcast. I'd like to also say to the listeners, if they've got any questions whatsoever, please contact us and we'll be happy to answer them, to subscribe to the podcast. And to also, if anyone's interested in automation, to go onto the MTDCNC website, you can see all of the previous content that we've produced for Hydrafeed on there. And like we mentioned, it's a perfect time to look at new products, look at new solutions for your facility. Thank you very much, gents, for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And that's
You're welcome.
From today. Thank you. And that's it from today's MTD Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the MTD Podcast. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. Find more episodes on mtdcnc.com.